Welcome to Mind Your Mind. I am Roxana Barra Sepulveda, your host. In this podcast, we explore the importance of self care and work life balance for anyone working in the front line. As a psychotherapist and clinical supervisor, over the years, I have seen firsthand the impact of demanding jobs on a personal and professional level. I will be sharing my years of experience and expert insights to help first responders, care and health professionals, charity and higher educational frontline workers thrive in their careers rather than burnout. During each episode, I will be talking with friends and colleagues who are experts in their field to further understand the potential impact of working with survivors of trauma and will share tips and loads of useful information to help you to develop your own personally meaningful strategy to maintain your resilience and optimal well-being while supporting others that are suffering. Join me as we create a chain of support and resilience where taking care of yourself is just as important as taking care of others. Remember, selfish is kind.
We have field work from the very beginning.
Good morning. If you want to enhance your practice, avoid secondary traumatization and burnout, stories of trauma, emotional or physical. Welcome to Mind Your Mind. Today we are with Gaby Cabrera-Kimchi. She is a functional medicine women health coach, holistic health advocate, and educator, founder of Wellness with Gaby and the creator of the Optimal Living Method. Having suffered and recovered from chronic stress and adrenal dysfunction, she is on a mission to revolutionize women's health by empowering women to understand their bodies and harness their hormones at any stage of life using functional medicine. Wellness with Gaby combines cutting-edge functional medical science with bio-individual health coaching to help clients unearth the root causes that are creating imbalances in their unique female biochemistry instead of simply band-aiding symptoms, so they can take action and finally enjoy a sustained, radiant health. She is an active member of the UK Health Coaches Association and works with clients one-to-one and run bespoke masterclasses and group workshops for corporate clients. So welcome, Gaby. Great to have you here. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Roxana. Thank you for having me here. It's such an honor to be talking about a topic that's really, I think, near and dear to my heart. As stress was the reason that I basically went on a health journey to help myself recover from all of these very strange and seemingly unconnected symptoms. And then that led on to me retraining as a health coach and now as a functional medicine practitioner, and set out on this mission I have to help women out.
That's wonderful. Yes, I'm also very excited about learning more about all what you have created after that experience, and also want to help people to start to understand stress. We will be talking about what stress and hopefully help everybody to start to understand their own stress, no? Because we all have different basis for our stress, different reasons why we are stressed. And we know that the charity workers, the first responders, healthcare professionals, and everybody working in the front line and in the higher education sector as well, everybody are already doing very stressful jobs. And because the nature of their job, especially when you are working with people that are suffering for a reason. So that's the nature of the job, but also there are other circumstances that can make our levels of stress to move in different directions.
Absolutely.
So to get started, what is stress?
So we have to unpack stress really, because it's this word we use around and everyone's stressed and we're also stressed out. But I think unpacking it actually really helps to take the charge away. And when you think about it, stress is just any type of change that causes physical, emotional, and psychological strain. And it's your body's response to adapt to that situation. So it's nothing more than that, really. So when you think about it, it's actually neutral. Stress is just neither bad or good. It's neutral, and it's our body's innate response to change, so that we can adapt and survive and thrive, right? So biochemically, it's neutral. That's how I like to think about it.
Yeah, neutral and natural. No?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
absolute. Yes.
It's the reason why we are here today, right? Because
exactly.
when we contract a virus, our bodies gear up, they deal with that, they resolve it, hopefully, and then we walk out stronger. So it is a challenge to us that has led us to survive and be here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we think about stress, as you were saying, as something very negative, no? That can be, something negative more than something neutral or natural. Is there such thing as positive stress?
Yes. Well, actually, like I said, the game of surviving and thriving happens through stress. So actually our bodies love a challenge. This is why sitting down is so bad for us, being stationary, because our bodies need to move and the muscles need the challenge. And actually a lot of the superfoods we hear about today, things like turmeric, for example, they actually act through stressing the body. And then it's our body's response to that trigger that makes us stronger. So a process known as hormesis, right? So human beings need that challenge, but it has to be in the right amount. Here's the thing. We need the challenge and it needs to be resolved. This is another key thing about stress. So we need to learn how to close those stress cycles so that we can thrive. But being on stress, like constantly on a constant basis, even if it's low level stress, that's where things can start to go wonky. So there is such a thing as positive stress for sure, but it's about knowing how to be ready for that challenge, whether you are ready for that, and then being able to manage it to its resolution.
Two things come to mind. Someone told me that this metaphor of when you threw a stone on the water, that creates that ripple effect.
Yeah.
After a while, that ripple effect will ease, right? And the water will become calm again. And what you're saying is making me think about that, how an event, a situation at work, or something that we are dealing with will create that response in us. And so stress needs to have that beginning, middle, and an end that you 100%. Were mentioning, no?
Yes. So where we can, whilst we cannot control the stress, what we can control is A, our terrain. So how ready are we for that challenge? And then B, the resolution of it. Because when we talk about stress being negative or positive, really what we have to focus on is the impact of stress on our bodies. And that's what I kind of help people do on a very bespoke individual nature. Yeah.
And what is because we're being clear here that what we are saying, and this is something that is related to burnout as well, no? That when it is this cumulative effect, no, that in a long term with the sustained stress that comes from different angles from life, no? But the thing is that we are living in that sort of intense kind of state of activation for a sustained period of time.
That's it.
And so what are the effects of that? We know about burnout at the moment, and we have spoken about that in previous episodes, and that continuum, no? And how we slowly can start to see the path that will take us into a place where it's more difficult to manage that.
That's right.
That ripple effect and start to calm the waters.
Yeah. So burnout, I like to think of it as unresolved stress. So something that hasn't finished that cycle and it just continues, right? And so, our nervous system has two branches. the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's that constant fight or flight, whether you're aware of it or not, because, you know, maybe you have an underlying gut infection. Well, that will trigger a stress response and you might not be aware. You might have an underlying food sensitivity, for example. Again, same thing. You might not be reacting appropriately with your blood glucose levels to a certain food. That is also perceived as stress in the body. So stress hormones are meant to be released episodically, like we said, not on all the time. And they're meant to protect us, actually. It's funny, at a physiological level, stress hormones are supposed to protect us, especially our tissues and organs from inflammation. The thing is, when this is ongoing and it's not resolved. So the body can only be, and this is something I tell my clients, and if you don't remember anything else from today, the body can only be in one of two states at any given time. It can be in the sympathetic fight, flight, or freeze, or in a healing regeneration state. And when you look at our anatomy, actually, and our physiology, the way our nervous system is wired, what we gather from this is that 95% of the time, our body should be in parasympathetic. So a lot of the healing, digesting, resting, should be our go-to mode, but we are in this sympathetic overdrive. Basically, modern life, that's what it is, constant eating, constant on the go, stress from every angle. We're exposed to more toxins than our grandparents were in their lifetime in one day. That's all stress on the body, and it's that load that adds up to challenges. And so when stress hormones are released consistently, not episodically like they were supposed to, we start to see breaking down of the body, because stress hormones are highly catabolic. What that means is they break things down. So it's like, I tell my clients, like driving a car in first gear all the time. You will get very far, but not for a very little period of time, and then things will start to break down. And so why this matters is because they create free radicals. The stress hormones oxidize things, they create free radicals that lead to inflammation and the breaking down of tissue. And so some of the consequences, for example, of chronic stress are higher inflammation, aging through that excess oxidative stress, blood sugar dysregulation, because obviously when we are stressed, we need blood sugar to run from that lion. I mean, this is, why
we need
our
the
nervous
energy,
system,
to
run.
run.
We need the energy to run. So yes, we need that excess blood sugar. Then we start to suffer with sleep, for example. So then we start to have impacts on melatonin, and melatonin is one of the body's main antioxidants. So we start to really suffer from that imbalance of oxidation and antioxidants in the body that start to break away things. The thyroid tissue is also very, very vulnerable to this oxidative stress. Higher incidence of cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, obviously, because your body's pumping more blood to get you out of this crisis. Muscle wasting, fertility, brain fog, hormonal imbalances, immune system dysfunction, and then DNA change as well because of telomere shortening that happens. So it's a lot, I know.
It's a lot. And we are very little aware of how stress can impact in our system, in our body. So there is, it's making me think all what we're talking about is something about the nature of stress, in the sense of it can be coming from within, but also can be external, no? So we can think about all the stressors that we have in our day-to-day life, this permanent fight or flight state that we tend to be, because the characteristics of our jobs and the natural, the lifestyle that we have now. In general, no, but also what's happening within. And when I think about that, I also think about our thoughts. No,
100%. Yeah.
And how important is to pay attention to the way as well. What are we making? of what's happening to us every single day, of the work that we are doing and so on? How are we helping and managing those thoughts, and how important thought awareness is
Yes.
to help ourselves not only to reduce the levels of stress, but also to be aware of where the stress is coming from, and what is the nature of our own life that can be contributing to those. And I'm talking about our own history, our own, all what it entails, our own personal journey.
Yes, our stories,
and
the
our
narratives.
story, the narratives and the thought awareness. So what can you tell us about that?
So yes, I think you've touched on something that's really important. A lot of stress is nowadays, it's actually perceived stress. So I like to differentiate between real stress and perceived stress. And the thing is that our bodies, again, don't know the difference. So our bodies will react in exactly the same way, whether the stress is imagined or real. And so this is, where thought awareness comes in. It's actually one of the tools I use the most in my practice, because when people understand that, yes, they don't have control over the stress. So a lot of the methods that we use to deal with stress are really not that productive, because what we do is wish the stressor away, we ignore it, we have lots of symptoms and we're like, yeah, it'll be gone, by tomorrow. Or we just avoid things, right? But actually, when you break stress down, and this, I like to break it into 3 parts, into the trigger, then it's the terrain or the personality lens that you apply to that trigger, and then you have the reaction or the response. So in thought work, that's what I help my clients do. It's like, if you have I make them think of a usual stressful situation. So I work a lot with moms, for example. So I don't know, their kids misbehaving, it seems to be a trigger for them. And I'm like, okay, how can you control that? I mean, you can't, right? You can't control when your kids are going to misbehave or what they're going to do. So can we break that down? So what is the actual trigger, and try to be objective? So I don't know, my child is misbehaving in public, or my child is being too loud. This is something, for example, with toddlers, when you go out and they're just being too loud and people are looking at you and they're having tantrums, and you then get triggered, right? Because this is an uncomfortable situation for you. So I'm like, right, what's actually happening just objectively is that your child is speaking with a loud voice or is crying, period. There's no kind of narrative attached to that. Then the lens that you apply is all your inherited beliefs. So for example, kids should behave, and I'm being a bad parent because my child is not behaving correctly. So that's actually what makes you react to the situation. The trigger is what the trigger is, right? So, and maybe in a different situation, for example, let's talk about women who undereat, because again, that's a societal thing that we do, right? We think that women should look a certain way, and therefore they eat less. And actually, when I do a lot of my work with my clients, I ask them to send me pictures of what they're eating, and they're massively under eating, and that's a huge stressor to the body. And so in this case, the trigger would be the under eating, and then the terrain, i.e. a woman's body, especially in the reproductive years, in a particular phase of the month, right before your period, for example, that would be a massive trigger to your body, that your body would perceive as a threat. And therefore, cortisol would go on the rise, and then you have your reaction, which is perhaps feeling like an energy crash in the afternoon, or feeling extremely tired, all those things, or making you want stuff like sugary stuff, for example. So cravings would be a result of that. So if you break that down, then you see where you have, where you can choose to act differently. And that's, I think, a huge relief that we suddenly can see that actually stress is not what happens to us, but how we react to it. So I help people find that room for that window of opportunity where they can help their bodies feel the impact of stress less, so that they can thrive.
Yeah, and this is making me think as well that what you have just explained, how useful it can be in the context of reflective practice for anybody that is working in the front line. When we get those moments of debrief, of getting to talk with one colleague to sort of process what have happened, especially when we are working with a stressful situation, with a particular case. Then we can have those moments to understand, okay, what was the stressor? What was the situation? What was happening to me? What was my reaction? And to start to understand how we get to respond to different situations in a particular way that has a lot to do with us, and how that will then impact in our own practice.
Correct.
And therefore, by just allowing those moments to reflect, to think together, to have that moment to acknowledge of what was happening and what was my thinking process and the sensations and feelings that I was having in the process, will also help us to give a closure to that moment of the stress, no? An understanding, a processing of the situation, and therefore an understanding. Because one of the elements of burnout as well, it has to do with the unresolved. So it is so much that we are doing, and so much in the witnessing of the suffering of others, that almost as if our system, our brain, don't get to process all of that information fast enough to be able to understand what was going on, and actually look at the situation in a way that is not internalized, because if we don't process it, it will be just like accumulating in our system, in our body, and so on. No, and there is where the accumulations start to happen, and so that can be a very useful element as well. That's why we always talk about getting those moments to talk with your colleagues, to have those conversations, to bring so something that we were talking with Christian in the last episode was about giving yourself the space and the time to be with your colleagues, but also to notice what are you feeling, because we are thinking about thoughts right now, right? But also to acknowledge the feelings that are attached to the moments that we are, the situations and the moments that we are going through, is also helpful for managing those stresses, and get to know ourselves.
That's right.
How do we react in certain situations, and what will be the triggers for us, because our triggers are very personal.
Exactly. If you know your triggers, so going back to the example of the mother reacting to the toddler's tantrum, for example. So she attaches her worth to how her kids behave in public, and it's that stress that she feels what makes her then react in a certain way. So my clients kind of tell me, well, I'm always, screaming at my kids. I feel I don't have a good relationship with them. I feel I need to discipline them better. So that's their go-to reaction. So once they sit down and they break it down and they actually see, well, a child is a child and will probably have tantrums at around that age of 2, 3 and carry on, misbehaving. They're learning how to, be adults, right? So that's not bad per se. It's actually the discomfort that they feel in their bodies because of the meaning they've attached to that then makes them react in a certain way. But so it's about being able to sit with your feelings and actually feeling that discomfort of stress, so that you can then choose to react differently. So what would be a more constructive thing to do in that situation, rather than just reacting and kind of keeping that pattern going? So, we have like 6,000 thoughts a day, and 95 of them come from preconceived beliefs and things that we did before. And so that's when we get stuck in life. That can also get us burnt out, right? When we feel like our life just keeps playing the same tune, and it's because we're reacting in the same way. So actually if we allow ourselves that room, that space to breathe, where we can recognize triggers and separate them from our responses and actually really deal with the terrain in the middle, with that stress personality. There are certain personalities that lend themselves more to stress, right? And you'll probably know this more than me. But, that perfectionist streak, that, A-type personality. So we know that now through neuroscience that we can change patterns and beliefs and the way we see the world. So
Absolutely.
That's where the work is, right? So that is where the work is. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the work that we do a lot in therapy as well, no? To understand the meanings.
Yeah.
And how so many of those preconceived ideas sometimes are useful for certain moments in our life, but then later on are not useful anymore. And that's something that we need to learn. You have made me think about lots of things and situations at work as well, working in the charity sector, for example. And I wanted to bring in this idea of how so many times I've heard from my supervisees, from my colleagues working in the front line, that every time that somebody goes on holidays, gets ill, gets a cold, or we are super highly functional during the day, doing what we have to do, responder firefighting, doing everything that needed to be done for supporting the people that we are working with. But the moment that it is to be relaxed and go into that space of ideally healing and recovering, re-energizing, people get ill. And I'm thinking about the impact of stress in our immune system, but I'm wondering what else is in there.
It tends to be super common, and I get it all the time. I guess we're just running on adrenaline on our day-to-day, and then the moment you kind of step down, that's your body saying, I need to heal, actually, and the I need to let go. So the getting sick is a way of your body letting go, although you might perceive it as, my immune system, I should be more relaxed, therefore I should be healing, but that's actually what your body's doing. It might not come out in the way you wanted it to, but that's actually your body switching to a different mode. And all you can do is really honor that, because that's, it's like when you do TRE, for example,
TRE, what is TRE?
This is trauma release exercise. This is like the kind of the tension and the stress that you're holding in your body. You activate your nervous system, and then you let go, and then suddenly you start to shake like animals do in the wild after they've been chased. So you see a gazelle being chased by a lion, and then she makes it so she's able to just relax, and the way she does that is by shaking. So it's that energy that needs to move, because the stress system mobilizes a lot of energy, and it comes at a huge cost. And so our bodies need to kind of come out the other end and shake it off, and really, get rid of those stress hormones through hopefully optimal liver function and detoxification, and really switch that off so that you can go into the other gear. So yeah, that's the way I would see it.
Yeah. And which also makes me think about the next level, no? How we then start to think about first of all, our own understanding of what is stressful for us, no? One of the things that we talk about here in Mind Your Mind is about the need of creating a self-care strategy that is meaningful for yourself, no? And we're bringing again the word meaning, because it really needs to be personalized. What works for you, what will be relaxing for you, will not be relaxing for me, and so on, no? And we repeat that so many times, but this is really a fundamental element, I think, in creating your own self-care strategy, because it is about trial and error. And you need to test and try and see what works for you, and start to repeat, no? When you see that things start to go in a good way. And also also consider that sometimes what works for you for a while may need to be readjusted, you may, or you can revisit things that you left in the past that you stopped doing.
Yeah.
And so what I'm thinking of is the importance of connecting with that angle, and understanding your stress.
Yes. And your unique body, because we're all bio-individual. This is something I'm very passionate about. So my food of choice might be your poison, and vice versa, because we're very, very different. Our microbiome is different, our physiology is different, our life experience is different, our genetic makeup is different. And so all of our choices will have a different impact on us. And I know in this society, we love magic pills. And so a lot of my clients, when they first come to see me, they're like, well, I've tried all of this and I just need this. And it's highly frustrating that, I never have the magic pill for them. But if they're willing to explore and be curious, then we can start to peel the layers of disease and dis-ease, as I like to call it, uneasiness. So the body's stuck in some kind of mode that we need to take it back to just being at ease and regenerate and heal. But that takes time, like you said, and it takes trial and error. And that's why, I do it in a 3-month setting, so that, we have that container to do that trial and error, using different things depending on, what their health is expressing at any given time. And so that's how I came up with the optimal living method, which is, going on a mission to find that sweet spot of what optimal living means to you. Based on, the latest in functional medical research, and then using highly bespoke coaching for each person, because everyone's different.
Everyone is different. And so if we think about our next episode, actually, that will be all the practical tips and ideas for everybody to start with that practice. I think we both are very keen on that element of action. We need to take action. We like to do that. And everybody can start in a different point. And we want to ensure to give you some tips and ideas that we will be working on for our next episode. But I thought as well that it will be interesting to get started, to sort of allow that initial little step that everybody can start to try and see how their stress look like and what is stressful for them. So is there anything that we can suggest to our audience to do during this period for them to start to understand a little bit better their stress?
Yeah, so for sure. I think start to think of your load. So, if stress is something that's triggering you, that's a burden on you, that's creating this physiological, emotional reaction, then let's just break it down and focus on your load. So what are they? And loads can be emotional, or they can be physical, like over exercising, under eating, maybe an underlying infection, not sleeping enough, those kind of things. So try to think where your stressors are coming from, and have a little bucket. And then think of, your daily choices. Just look at the last 24 hours and think, how have they impacted your nervous system? When have you felt aligned? When have you felt at ease? When haven't you felt at ease? What are those situations that tend to repeat themselves? And just have a list. Don't overthink it. Just have a list, Is your plate too full? Other kind of questions that you can think of, What can you courageously start to say no to, If it's not a hell yes, I tell my clients, then it's a hell no. There's not an in between, So if your heart's not singing to something, to the tune of something, then there's a reason for that. There's like an innate reason, and there's actually the heart and the gut are second brains, and they're telling us something. We've just lost connection with that intuition. Because I saw this somewhere, I can't remember where, but it said that burnout doesn't happen from doing too much like we think. It's actually from not doing the things that we enjoy. So, whatever's not giving you joy in life. So where is your vitamin J, your vitamin joy, your vitamin, where's your vitamin P for pleasure, right? We need to be feeling this on a daily basis because the body needs to heal in that parasympathetic state. And for that to happen, the body needs to feel safe, not you rationally thinking, I'm safe. No, your body actually needs to feel it in every cell. And then things go back to, that hormesis. So yeah, what we were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah, excellent.
And so yeah, I think that's a great starting point.
Very simple.
Awareness.
Awareness, and just writing a list, no thinking too much about it. Just give it a go and name it. Just to name it. Yeah.
You have to name it to tame it.
Yes, and I love that we're getting to an end for today's podcast with that J vitamin concept, which is the one that we hopefully will be enjoying at least once a day with anything that can give us joy and energy and a positive uplift in a way, to combat that persistent stress that we are working with. So here is to find those micro moments of J vitamin for all of us. Thank you so very much,
You're welcome.
Gaby. I really, really appreciated you being here. And I shall see you, and we will continue talking in the more practical level in our next episode. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Can't wait. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.